Shalom and welcome to my weekly video message. You may have heard the expression almost doesn't count, or almost doesn't count except when playing horseshoes or throwing a hand grenade. When playing horseshoes, even if you miss the stake, as long as it lands within 6 inches, it is still worth 1 point. But otherwise, is it really true that almost doesn't count? In this week's Torah portion, Shemot, the very first portion in the second book of the Torah, we read about the slavery which our forefathers began to endure in the land of Egypt, and the birth of Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu, who would be sent by God to liberate them from their bondage. But not so fast. At the time Moses was born, Pharaoh had ordered that all Jewish baby boys be cast into the Nile immediately after birth. Fearing the terrible fate that the Egyptians would bring upon their newborn child, his mother placed him in a basket on the river and had his sister watch over him. Eventually, he was discovered by Pharaoh's daughter, who raised him as her son in her father's palace and named him Moshe, as she said, "For I drew him from the water." The Torah goes on to tell us that when Moses grew older, he left the palace and discovered the hardships of his brethren. And upon witnessing the cruelty of an Egyptian taskman who was beating a Jew, he killed the Egyptian. The Torah then tells us that he went out on the second day. Behold, 2 Jews were quarreling. Moses said to the wicked one, "Why will you strike your friend?" Let's stop here and reflect on what we just read. Moses said to the wicked one, "Why will you strike your friend?" But wait a second. If he hadn't yet struck his friend, if all he had done was merely raise his hand, why is he considered sinful and called the wicked one? This question is addressed by the Talmud and noted by Rashi in his commentary on the Torah. It is also brought down as a principle in Jewish law by Maimonides in his book of Mishnah Torah. This verse teaches us that even though you don't actually strike someone, it is forbidden to raise one's hand upon a fellow, and one who does is deemed wicked. But the question still remains, why? Why is this person deemed wicked if almost doesn't count? So here's a beautiful insight that I love, given by the Rebbe in 1988. The Rebbe explains that God created the hand to enable each of us to act godly by expressing kindness, to provide for others and fulfill our godly duties, most of which are done with our hands. So when a person misuses his hand to express an action that is the complete opposite of kindness, even though he hasn't actually hit someone or caused another pain, since it contradicts the very purpose his hand was created for, it is considered an act of wickedness and an affront to God, who created the hand for the purpose of doing acts of kindness. But here's the icing on the cake and a powerful takeaway. You see, if the merely lifting of one's hand is so significant when misusing it, just consider for a moment the significance of every movement that we do towards a positive endeavor, towards giving love, caring for others, and fulfilling our godly duties. You may not have saved the world today. Likewise, you may not fully observe the Shabbat or spend every moment of your spare time engrossed in prayer or Torah study. But when you lift your hand to put a penny in the charity box each morning, when you pick up the phone to call a friend or a lonely neighbor or any favor for another, when you set the Shabbat candles on your table, or when you open a sefer, a book of Torah, or a siddur, a book of prayer, remember the power of the hand, and that when fulfilling its purpose, it is more meaningful than the horseshoes landing 6 inches from the stake. On Sunday in October of 1991, as the Rebbe was using his hands to give a dollar bill and blessing to those passing by, A CNN reporter asked the Rebbe for his message to the world about Mashiach. The Rebbe's answer was simple. Mashiach is ready to come now. It is only on our part to do something additional in the realm of goodness and kindness. The Rebbe then immediately led by example by giving the reporter $2 and instructing him to give it to charity. Let's continue to make every effort to use our hands and every fiber of our being to provide goodness and kindness to all those with whom we come into contact. And soon we will merit to the coming of Mashiach, when we will truly appreciate that when it comes to acts of kindness, almost does matter, because every positive action matters. Shabbat Shalom.